So, hello everyone. This is the first session of 30 Days of Google Cloud by GDSC IIEST. And the objective of this session is to give you a brief idea about what Google Cloud is, what this 30 Days of Google Cloud program is all about. That's it. And first of all, thank you for choosing choosing cloud. And I'm hopeful there's a lot to learn through this program. I'm going to enjoy a lot. And this 30 days is going to be full about learning, building, sharing, and growing. There is going to be some polls and quizzes throughout the program, throughout the session. So what I want you to do is go to a new tab, go to the slido.com, and then enter this number 793751. Or there is one link in the chat that's been pinned. You can go over there and just open that link in the new tab. That's it. If you're on your mobile phone, then you can just scan the QR code and just let me know if you're facing any issues joining that. For a quick check, you will find a small, go to the polls section. There's going to be one question. What's your name? You can just add your name. And if everyone's still showing 0, okay, people are joining. Cool. I'll just wait for the numbers to reach 20 plus, and then I will get started because there are around 40 people in this session. Wow. Yeah, so I don't think there is an issue on the sliders part. Okay. So this is going to be the agenda for today's session. First, I know most of us over here are either from second year, third year, or maybe some are in fourth year as well. And it's important for us to know what this program and what cloud in general has in for our future, for our career. So we will dive into the career opportunities that cloud provides us. And there are actually different fields like security, networking, infrastructure, data analytics, etc. Cloud in itself is really vast, and we'll look into the various opportunities that are present. And after that, we will look into what's cloud anyways. Like, if someone asks you, what did you learn from, what is cloud? Then you have to, then you should be able to give them an idea about what cloud is and why cloud is being such a trend. Why, companies like Google are focusing so much on cloud that they have come up with programs like 30 Days of Cloud. We'll just get an idea about that. And finally, we'll get ourselves acquainted with the Google Cloud platform, the services that are there, some of the key technical terms. And yeah, today's session is not going to be hands-on, but neither is going to be very textbookish either. I'll just add some technical terms and explain them. And it's better to know them before you get started in this 30 days. A very quick poll as well. Go to Slido once again and just let me know how many of you have just were able to register for the 30 Days of Cloud. Wow. Okay. There are some of you who weren't able to register. This is great. So those who have been able to register, congratulations. Enjoy. And for those who didn't, I know the registration procedure was very clumsy and it was really a mess. Not gonna lie, but still, I'm really glad that you still thought of joining us. And I hope that through these sessions that we will conduct, you're going to gain some insights regarding cloud as well. So thanks for joining us. And before moving on, I would like to show you a small video by Google. Let me know if you can hear the voice as well, the audio.
Eu comecei a trabalhar com deficientes visuais por causa de projeto de pesquisa da faculdade. E comecei a perceber como os desafios deles eram complexos.
My grandparents have low vision and aren't as mobile. I wanted to build something that could help them move around. And then I met
Foi aí que eu conheci o Richard. a gente está trabalhando num aplicativo que usa a câmera do seu celular para detectar objetos e obstáculos no seu ambiente. Ele te conta o que ele vê em voz alta e como você pode desviar.
There's a mailbox in front of you. Move right to walk around it.
We're in separate continents, so we had to find a way to collaborate remotely.
A gente começou a usar o Google Meet para nos falarmos por vídeo frequentemente e conversamos sobre como nós poderíamos transformar a nossa ideia em realidade.
I even learned a little Portuguese. Obrigado, Sarah. Our app uses computer vision and a combination of neural networks powered by Google Cloud's AI. One network helps identify the objects the camera sees.
E uma outra rede junta tudo em uma frase completa.
There's a coffee table blocking your path to the door in front.
We hope that eventually anyone can use the app for indoor and outdoor navigation, and even on public transport.
To take the red line, turn left and then right.
A gente quer continuar a usar a tecnologia para ajudar a criar um mundo mais acessível.
And it doesn't take a computer to see where that could take us.
Yeah, so it's a really nice video, and this was actually a proposed solution to the Google Cloud Challenge, the Solutions Challenge, sorry. And the application, the prototype that was built was completely using cloud services and cloud APIs. So this small video really shows you what's the the potential of cloud in general. And yeah, with that, let's get started with the first slide, which is the how can you prepare for the cloud careers. Now, we all know that cloud is actually a booming technology these days, and most of the IT companies and the large companies have started shifting from the traditional architecture, the traditional infrastructure to cloud. And this shift has generated a huge demand of cloud engineers, really skilled professionals who are proficient with cloud technologies. And through this program, you will be able to, I won't say deep dive into, but at least have very basic fundamental idea about concepts like cloud computing, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. And there are tons and tons of resources through which you can learn about the GCP services, and you can become eligible for such positions. And I just want to put it out there that cloud is going to stay. It's not that it's a small hype, no. It's going to be relevant for the next decade that's going to come. And at this moment, only a very small fraction of companies have been able to adopt cloud. And the reason is, it's very simple, because it's not possible for companies which have a huge code bases, large services, to just shut down all their production and just move the technology and services to cloud in just day one. It's going to be a phase-wise approach. And because of this, there is a huge demand, as I said, and at the same time, there is also a very less number of people who are really skilled. Nearly 80% of the world IT department report that there is a skill gap in the cloud-ready talent. Another 50% report that they're struggling to hire skilled professionals in this domain. And this is where the university students like us can fill in the skill gap that's existing in the market. I mean, if you think in a very logical manner, let's say today you came up with an idea, like the idea that was shown in the video, and you want to deploy that, or you want to create a prototype to show it to your friends, or let's say you're a small startup and you want to show that prototype to your investors. What would you do? What you should do is basically choose a cloud service of your choice and just deploy your application. You don't have to worry about the infrastructure, how to how much amount of computational power should I allocate, how much resources should I allocate, which network to choose on. You don't have to worry about that. You just focus on the application and let the cloud services, the cloud service providers, take care of the the infrastructure behind it. And this is kind of the potential which cloud computing has. And I've heard these questions, and I've felt myself as well, like as a beginner, how should I get started with cloud or Google Cloud or any other cloud services in general? I would say certifications is one way, because what I've felt, because I've gone through the tracks last year, and what I felt was that the certifications are designed in a very structured way. So if you look into one of the quests, what you will find is, first, there are lots of labs where you're given study materials about a particular topic or a concept. You go through them, you try it out, practically just a dummy Google Cloud Platform service. And at the end, you have a challenge lab where you're given a real life scenario. I remember this one challenge lab that was there. I think it's probably in track 2 maybe, where there was some person like Alice. She has a bakery shop. She sells ice creams and cakes and stuff. She wants to have a website for the online presence of her shop, and she wants to also integrate a chat functionality which will allow any user visiting the website to place order. And what we had to do was choose integrate Google Assistant API, and using that, and there is some service called PubSub. I will talk about that. Using that, you can create a chatbot functionality where the user can place orders, and then that order will directly go into the database. So this so you will be given kind of like these scenarios which you have to implement in the skill labs. And because of this, you can see the statistics, like 87% of the Google Cloud certified individuals are much more confident about their cloud skills. So what I would suggest you to do is this, in this 30 days, don't hurry. Like you're already in the program, you will get the swags, don't worry about that. But when you're doing a lab, try to think about why you're running this command, what's going on behind the scenes, and what will happen if you do the otherwise. So just think about it, try to understand, try to research, because this is going to help a lot in your future as well. A lot of the roles that you can see over here, like roles like cloud architect, cloud developer, data engineer, DevOps engineer, cloud security engineer, cloud network engineer, collaboration engineer, machine learning engineer, all of these roles require very in-depth fundamental knowledge of cloud. So in these 30 days, if you grasp that fundamental knowledge, you're just one step ahead in for these roles. So that's my kind of like my message to you guys, that not just focus on completing the quest and getting the skill badges, but to know cloud in depth. And we have 2 tracks. The first track is the cloud engineering track, and in this track, after completing this track, you will be proficient. You will basically explore and deploy solution elements and be proficient with certain infrastructural components like networks, systems, application services. We have total 6 quests under this track. And the second track is the data science and machine learning. And after you complete this track, you will be proficient with how to handle big data, and prepare yourself for roles like data analyst and data engineer. This track also has 6 quests. Some quest is common. I think the first quest is common in both of them. So now let's ask the important question, like, what is cloud anyways, right? Now again, I will not go into a very textbook definition of cloud, but these are kind of like the 5 fundamental characteristics that have been laid down. There's an institute called the National Institute of Standards and Technologies that have given this 5 fundamental characteristics, and it's being followed worldwide as well. And after going through these 5 characteristics, you will understand why the organizations have decided on moving towards cloud, why they have started adopting cloud, and why you should, if in your projects as well, use cloud services, because what benefits it will give to you. So the first point is on-demand self-service. Like 5 years or 10 years back, if you had to get yourself a VM or a server, what you have to do is call a provider and then tell them the specs that you want, the configuration that you want, and then after a period of 5 days or a week, you will get your server. But today it's not the situation. Today, most of you have done some of the quests in the GCP platform as well. You would know that you can click on the compute, click on create instance, and then you can choose which kind of machine, which kind of VM instance you would want. If you want 4 GB of storage or more storage, if you want single core or multi-core processor, which network you would want your VM to be on. So this on-demand self-service, like where you can get yourself whatever you want without any human intervention, is one of the really important aspect of every cloud providers. The second thing is the broad network access. It's very common nowadays. Like everything is interconnected, and it should be, and everything, all the resources that you keep for your organization or as an individual should be accessible from anywhere. And you can take a look at it from two ways. One is from the organizational point of view as well as from the user point of view. From organization point of view, let's say you are an organization based in Mumbai and you have some servers and everything in your office. Now, if someone is from some other part of the world, if they have to connect to your server, they should be connected to a network. But if your organization decide take instead of choosing physical servers, if they took allocated themselves some cloud cloud instances, then employees from anywhere around the world will be able to connect to that and work on that, right? And the second point of view which you can take is from the user point of view, that having a broad network access, like I will talk about the large network that Google Cloud has, is going to help the users, the customers of your applications by two things. First, the latency, and second, there is going to be a huge performance boost as well. People from anywhere around the world, so once you deploy your application to the cloud, people from anywhere around the world can access your application, right? So that's the second point, which is the broad network access that these cloud providers provide. The third thing is resource pooling. Again, you can take a look at it from the cloud provider perspective as well as from the consumer perspective as well. Whenever some user requests for a new resource, like you create a new VM, it's not like Google is going to create a separate VM just for you. They have this huge warehouse and data center full of large machines. They've invested billions of dollars for the last decade or so just to allocate that huge amount of resources. And every time a user requests for that, all they do is just give a share of that resource to that particular user. Once the user is done with that, they just put that share to some other user. In a way, they're just having that one resource, one fraction of resource that's being shared by a pool of users. And that's what is meant by resource pooling. From the other point of view, if you look at it from the user point of view, you would see, let's say this month you're working on a project which would need huge, not huge, I would say large computational power. So you order a VM which has large number of microprocessors and stuff. And next month you're starting working on a project which now needs large storage space. Maybe you're working with large volume of data now. So now you cannot sell the previous one. So what you have to do is you have to take one, create another order for another server or an instance. So now, if you have chosen a cloud, what you could have done was you could have easily returned back the previous instance and now just allocate yourself a new instance. This also brings us to the fourth point, which is rapid elasticity. Let's say you have your application and you've deployed it into a cloud, and then someday, and you just see some normal traffic in your application, but someday some really famous personality tweeted about your application, and you see that the hockey stick kind of graph where the number of requests per hour skyrockets. At that very point, what you can do is very easily allocate more resource to your application that will be able to handle that large traffic. And once the traffic normalizes, you can roll back to your previous configuration, just like that. So this brings us to the freedom of easily customizing your application and the VM instance and every service that you're taking. And the fifth and a really important point is you're going to be paying only for how much you are using or you're reserving for yourself, you're allocating for yourself. Although in this program, you're not going to worry about the billing and everything, but let's say when you are working as a cloud architect, where you have to design or have to decide on how much amount of resources you will be gathering, this is one very important aspect that you have to consider, because expenditure of the companies also have to be taken care of. With the help of cloud, the benefit is that you're only going to pay for what you consume. That's it. And so that's the five fundamental characteristics of any cloud providers that you would find in nowadays. And one thing we should remember is that I'm not saying that whenever a company or or an organization is moving to cloud, they're looking for exactly these 5 points. You should realize that every company is in the different phases of their journey, and some startups, like some really small startups, may be much more inclined towards the 5th point, which is the measured service, while some big companies might be much more interested towards the on-demand self-service, how fast they can allocate themselves more and more resources. So yeah, so these 5 points in general is one of the deciding factors of why companies today and in future will be moving towards cloud. This takes us to another interesting Google philosophy, which is every company is a data company. And Google believes in this philosophy that in future, every company, regardless of their size or industry, will differentiate itself from its competitors through technology. And largely the technology will be a kind of in a form of software, and great software always revolves around data. So therefore, every company in some way or indirectly you can think about will become a data company. And it applies even today. Think of all the big companies whose name you can it just comes to your mind. And all of them have huge amount of data at their hand, right? And how is this going to affect? Because you can only store this large amount of data in cloud. Cloud gives you that, the services to manage the large volume, the variation, and the velocity of the data. And you can further, there are other services as well, which lets you analyze those data and then gain important insights and information. Moving on, most of you might know these 3 models, which is the infrastructure as a service model, the platform as a service model, and the software as a service model. Also, by the way, I just want to see if there's a question. I would say that let's keep all the questions for the end. I'm right now just looking at the slides, so just keep the questions in the Q&A section, and I will take those at the end. Yeah. So starting with infrastructure as a service. So this is kind of those service where the service is going to provide you the underlying architecture for you to run the servers. So the resources are going to be provided to you, but it's up to the user, basically up to you, to manage the operating system and the application and everything. So let's say you're an enterprise. All you need is just some servers. Then you would install the operating system which you want, install the load balancers, the web servers, and everything you have to do it along with deploying your application. What they is going to provide is just the infrastructure. That's it. Platform as a service takes it one step further. Here, all you have to do is just provide the application, which OS they're going to run, how they're going to deploy, how they're going to manage the traffic, and everything will be taken care by the service provider. All you have to do is just focus on the application, and that's it. And the third part is the software as a service. This is very common. Most of the unicorn businesses and the startups are focusing on SaaS products. Here, all the user has to do is just use the product. That's it. Just enter the details. That is, the user has to provide the data. The very fact that we are in this in this session is because of a software as a service, which is Bevy. If you remember, if you just recall, while joining this session, all you had to do was just log into your account, and then you're just over here, right? You didn't have to deploy your application or anything like that. So this is an example of a software as a service. So these are the 3 service models: infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. There are many other service models as well, like container as a service, computational as a service, and other stuffs. But these are majorly the 3 models that it's followed. So as I was saying, so this is the Google network that's been set up by Google for the last couple of decades. And the dots that you see all over, these are the edge points of presence, and the blue cables connecting those dots are the subsea submarine lines connecting them. And why is this important? Because the thing is, you should remember, this is a private network set up by a private company. And once you deploy your cloud service or cloud application, in this network, it's going to be accessible from anywhere around the world, because it's evident from the network itself. And you would be really shocked by the sorry, if you look at the statistic, around 40% of the world's internet traffic is in this network. So you can take advantage. So users can take advantage because now they are getting all the services and they're getting access to these applications that are deployed in cloud with very low latency and very at a very very less delay. Because let's say someone from India wants to connect to your application that's deployed on the cloud. All they have to, the request will be sent to the nearest data center that's over there, and from there the response is, you're going to get the response. So this is going to reduce the latency by a lot of factor. And secondly, from the organization point of view, you don't have to think about whether or not whether your application will be reachable to other people around the world. All you have to take care of is just maintain the traffic and just deploy it to the Google Cloud Service. That's it. And by the way, there is just like 90 internet exchanges and more than 110 points of presence worldwide. So you can imagine such a large network it is, and it's still growing. So yeah. Now Google Cloud offers you a range of compute service. So basically all the services that are provided in Google Cloud. So up till now, I was talking basically in generic about cloud. Now I will be focusing on what Google Cloud is going to provide and what you will be interacting with in the next 30 days. So every product can be broadly categorized into 4 categories. One is compute, storage, big data, and machine learning. So over here, and now it's not possible to go through every one of them deeply in this today's session. Maybe in some future session we will do that, but it's best to know this. So if you so for compute engine, most of you might have used compute engine by now. That you can create virtual instances, virtual machines using the compute engine. So this falls under the category of infrastructure as a service, right? So here Google Cloud is taking care of the infrastructure. You just create a VM instance, and then it's up to you to manage what operating system you want to use. There's an option to choose whether you want Ubuntu 18 or any other Red Hat or any other operating systems. And so this comes under infrastructure as a service. Then we have the Google Kubernetes engine, which is used for running Docker containers. We will keep a session on that as well. Third is the app engine. Here, in case of app engine, you just have to deploy your application. You don't have to worry about whether or not what operating system is being used, how they're managing the traffic and everything. You don't have to worry about that. So app engine comes under the category of platform as a service, PaaS. Then we have cloud functions, which are nothing but like event-based serverless code. Let me give an example. Let's say every time a particular user signs up or creates an account in your application, you want them to send a customized mail. So what you can do is you can take this particular logic and put it in a serverless code. And the event, so whenever a user logs in or signs up, it's going to trigger the event, which will trigger the code that you've written, and that will send the mail. So this is what you can do with cloud functions. If you worked with Firebase functions, it's pretty much similar. And lastly, we have Cloud Run, which is for running stateless containers. This comes under the example of containers as a service. So this is all about compute. So computing under the compute category, compute engine, GKE, app engine, cloud functions, and Cloud Run. Next, under the storage. So yeah, so once you deploy your application, as I said, every company is a data company, so the focus should be on the storing the data as well. And there are different kinds of data. So one data, there can be unstructured data, which is usually handled by the cloud storage. You can create buckets, and then you can upload images, text, videos, and make them, you can create public URLs with those as well. For more relational databases, you have the Cloud SQL and the Cloud Spanner. And for NoSQL type databases, for data, you have the data store and the Cloud Bigtable. Finally, we have the 2 other categories, which is big data and machine learning. In case of big data, so now you've taken care of the storage as well. Now you have to analyze the data, right? So for that, you have all the services under the big data. BigQuery is really powerful. You can write a query, and that will run over petabytes of data within seconds. So it's really powerful. PubSub is the messaging, it's a messaging technology that will allow you to allow data to flow into your application in a streamlined fashion. As I was saying, that example of Alice that I said, we use PubSub to, that will, let's say a user goes into the chat box and types, I want an order of a cake by Thursday. So PubSub will segregate the data into like cake and Thursday, and then that detail is going to be stored into the database. PubSub is that for that. Data flow is for for creating data processing pipeline, so that when the data is entered, it gets processed as well as classified accordingly. Dataproc is again for data processing, further data processing. AI platform notebooks is nothing but like kind of like Jupyter notebooks, but hosted on cloud instances. And finally, for the machine learning, we have tons of APIs which are already trained. And for example, you have the vision API, the speech to text API, the cloud translation API, and all of this. Mostly big data and machine learning will be covered in the second track, and storage and compute will be covered in the first track. Okay. So with this, I think we've come with the end of the first section, which was what cloud is and the services. So we have a small quiz. I would ask every one of you to move to the Slido once again and get ready for the quiz. So there will be a quiz section. Join the quiz, and I'll just wait for a couple of people to join them. Okay, just the disclaimer, the timer is going to be of 15 seconds. So hurry up, don't Google. Don't worry, you don't have to Google. The questions are really easy. How many people are there? Oh wow, there's 50 people. I'll wait for more people to join. Okay. If you're wondering, if you joined late and you're wondering what this is, there's a link in the chat. It's pinned. Join that. Head over to the quiz section and put your name and join, and then we will get started with the quiz. There are 33. Shall I wait for a few more? Okay, so I'm going to start the quiz. 3, 2, 1. Cloud computing has. Wait, this question. So answer the question. Choose the option. Great. A lot of you have answered it correctly. I think I missed the leaderboard part. Okay, yeah. The answer was 5. Sorry. Yeah, okay. Let's move on to the next question. A service that concentrates on hardware follows which service model? Let's see. The infrastructure as a service, right? Because it already concentrates on the hardware, so it will just be infrastructure on the service. Okay, Monkey is doing great. And finally, we have which Google Cloud service doesn't come under the compute category? Okay, PubSub is the answer. It comes under the big data. Yeah, service concept. Yeah. So congratulations, Monkey. I wish I knew you just enter your correct name. But anyways, thanks. And next, move on to the second part of the slide, which is starting with the solid platform. That is starting with Google cloud platform, right? So there are 4 ways in which you can interact with Google Cloud. One is the Google Cloud Console. The second is the Cloud SDK and the Cloud Shell. The third is the REST-based API. And finally, we have the Cloud Console mobile app. So most of you might have used the Cloud Console, the web user interface that you see. And in that, basically, you can do everything that you want with just a few clicks. And you can create a VM, allocate, create new instances as well, create buckets and everything you can do. Then we have the Cloud Shell, the Cloud SDK. So the Cloud SDK is the Cloud Software Development Kit and the Cloud Shell, which is kind of like the command line interface for that. So yeah, we have the web user interface, which does everything. Then why do we need a command line interface as well? The reason is that a lot of time, let's say you're a big organization and every time you come up with a new project, you create an instance of X number of X size and it's in a particular region. Every time it's very tedious to everyone click and create the new instance, right? So what you can do is create a script and just every time just run that script. So with the help of Cloud SDKs and Cloud Shell, you can do that. Cloud Shell is really a lot of other features as well. I will talk about that. And then we have the REST-based API. Most of you might now at this point might know what REST-based APIs are. But then everything that you can do using the Cloud Console, the web user interface, the Cloud Shell can also be done by just calling some REST, calling some APIs, by making some API calls. And not just that, there are certain client libraries that is there, in 7 to 8 languages like C++, Python, Node, I think Ruby is also there. And you can use those libraries to do the same thing which you would do in using the web user interface and command line interface. So if you want to create a Flutter application, which will, with the press of a button, will just make some API calls and keep an instance ready for you to do. And lastly, we have the Cloud Console and mobile app. It's for Android, iOS and Android both. So let's move to the just a sec. Yeah. So the Cloud Console. So here you can see this is how it looks. The Cloud Console, the GUI. With this, what you will get is that this is like the centralized console for all your project data, and you can do everything with just a few mouse clicks, and you don't have to remember any commands or anything at all. So this is very beginner friendly as well. And one thing that you should remember is that when you use the Cloud Console, the resources that you create or allocate are done in the context of a specific project. So there is this concept of project. You can create multiple projects so that you use projects that separate your work in whichever way it makes sense for you. For example, let's say if you want to make a new project, you want to make sure only certain team members can access the resources in that project, while all other team members can continue to access the resources in some other project. So you can create this kind of like isolation within just one Gmail account. You can create this kind of like isolation among different projects. With the Cloud Console, with the web user interface, you can access the other tools as well, like the cloud source repositories, the Cloud SDKs, and the Cloud Shell. There's this one top button in the top, a terminal icon. You can click that and it pops up in the Cloud Shell. So this is how it looks. Once you log into your Cloud Console, you will see on the top left side is all the details related to your project that you are in. Then you have the API calls. It gives you a graph of how much API calls your application is making. Then you have the billing aspect of it and other details as well related to that particular project only. And you can click on the hamburger menu at the top left, and that will give you access to that entire list of services that I said. And you will notice that they're classified into 4 categories of storage, big data, machine learning, and compute. And since it's a huge list, it also has a feature of pinning. So let's say if you want to use a particular service a lot, so you can just pin it at the top. For example, you can see that here the Kubernetes engine has been pinned at the top. And as I was saying, so the Google Cloud service that you use is always associated with a project. Basically, projects are the basis of enabling and using Google Cloud services. It allows you to enable manage the APIs, enable billing. You can add or remove collaborators, and enable or disable other Google services as well. And every project has these 3 attributes: the project ID, the project name, and the project number. All of these are auto-generated when you create a new project. The project ID and the project number should be globally unique. project name can be anything. It's just for your convenience. The project ID is can only be changed while creating new project. Once that's done, you cannot change it later on. Project name you can change anytime, but the project number is fixed. And finally, we have so one thing I used to remember that you would be creating a lot of buckets, right? And all the buckets should have a unique name. And I also used to forget what name I chose for the bucket. So what I used to do is I used to copy the project ID and use that as my bucket. And it has two advantages. One, I know it's unique, so it's not going to clash with any other name. And second, even if I forget what was the bucket name, I can just copy my project ID again. So yeah, it's a cool trick. Finally, the Cloud SDK, which is the software development kit that you have. So it gives you a set of command line tools that you can download and install on your computer of your choice. Like you can run all the commands in your terminal right now if you just install the Cloud SDK. And there are three important binaries. One is the G Cloud. It allows you to manage authentication, the configuration, the developer workflow, and interaction with the Google Cloud APIs. There's one common thing that you would do every time is once you open up a new lab, you open the Cloud Shell and you would run this command like gcloud auth list, just to check whether you are at the correct project or not, right? So that's the gcloud I'm talking about. Then you have the GS util. This is to manage the cloud storage buckets and other objects. Finally, we have the BQ, which stands for BigQuery, and it allows you to run queries and manipulate datasets, tables, and entities in the BigQuery through the command line. And then comes the Cloud Shell, which is one of the most powerful aspects of Google Cloud Platform. So in the Cloud Shell, it basically gives you a CLI access to the resources. And you can do everything and anything with the Cloud Shell. And you don't have to worry about anything at all, because the Cloud Shell comes with Cloud SDK fully installed and up to date and fully authenticated. That's why you can run the gcloud auth list, right? At the same time, let's say you're not very comfortable with using the command line editors like Vim or Nano. What you can do is there is also a VS Code like editor, and you can just just switch to that and make changes to your code. And then let's say you're deployed in a particular application at a port like 4000. What you also can do is there is an option for web preview, where you can preview what's going on in the localhost port 8000 of the Cloud Shell. So it's really powerful. So you can start the Cloud Shell by the terminal icon at the top right, and it will look like this. And here is the various options that is there. Like you have the web preview, you have the editor. The editor looks like this. Here it's exactly like the VS Code editor. You can edit files and save them easily, and it's much handy compared to Vim if you're not aware of the Vim commands and how to use them. Finally, we have the iOS and the Android application. And this application, you can do pretty much everything in this application as well, but it's mainly towards seeing the statistics and the analytics. Like let's say you can create notifications, you can enable notifications when your application hits this many requests per second and all those stuff. You can also run all the commands and everything, but obviously it's not very convenient to doing that in a small screen. But yeah, it has all the capabilities of a normal Cloud Shell, the web user interface on as well. And with that ends today's session from my side.